So welcome to another episode of Estate and CX. Today I've got two awesome people on our podcast, and actually one of them is returning back for a second time from Harrison Homes. Chris and Liz, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Today we're going to talk around their journey in the last 5 years, around what they've seen change within how their business operates, what they've done, what they've tried to do, how things have gone, the real life part of that implementational change. So we've got Chris, the owner and leader of Harrison Homes, and then his sidekick, Liz, who does all their marketing, their creative marketing, and bringing everything together. So it's going to be a really good show, guys. Hope you enjoy it. So, first question I want to ask you. Like, put yourself back 5 years ago, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
What was your agency like then? Like running an estate agency like then? Like, go back to like literally, what was your day-to-day role? How things were operating? How the teams were? Like, cast back to, if you can cast back to that time, because you've changed a lot.
Oh, right. So if I go back to, again, we're going back towards COVID, aren't we? We had a completely different team there. So for me, going back 5 years ago, I've got a pretty good memory as it is, which I keep getting complimented for. However, what I found a lot of is in this business, you can't just go by memory. And I think, as I said, one of the key things that I was trying to bring in, and again, it was change, and this is one of the things that just continuously keeps coming up now, is changing the way the business is. And I'm always changing the way that we are to try and improve. So a lot of it is trial and error. So if I go back to where we were 5 years ago, it's unrecognisable.
How was, like, walking into your office, 8:30 start?
I would have always been in rather early, to be honest. But yeah, I have tried to get the team back to at least, as I said, 8:30, rather than trying to work the sort of hours that I was working. But I think, as I said, one of the things I noticed is I was working a lot harder than what I needed to.
Yeah.
And again, it's classic, isn't it? You work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
So I think, again, if you go back to the whole system, and it's enabled us now really to concentrate our time in, working smarter.
So what did, like, if you were to start your morning meeting, what was like that 5 years ago? Like, if you can cast your time back there, like how did that physically work? Because it could be that some people are sitting on listening to this podcast or watching it going, actually that sounds like us still now, like, but we want to change. So like,
I think
what does that look like?
What did it look like 5 years ago? I think I was probably chasing the wrong thing. So typical ego was wanting to be number one in the area. So it's just constantly chasing that. But again, 2020 was a classic there, that we actually took on far more, too many, that we couldn't cope. So the change of mindset for me, and this has gone over the last couple of years, to be honest, it's taken me a while to get that ego, typical estate agent side of things out of me. So,
old ways of thinking and working, really, wasn't it? Like,
yeah.
What was your background before? Like, was you corporate?
No.
Was you independent?
No, so I started in the industry in 2004 as a little apprentice, and I've just worked my way through the business. So the typical promotions as they go, going from sales neg to senior neg to branch manager to director owner.
And was there like a prevailing moment where, in the last few years, that you thought, I don't want to run the business like it is now? Like, why was there a transition in that? Like, was there any particular steps that you thought, do you know what, I'm just fed up, I'm going to start going on this explorer route, like from that, that removing that ego and going to explorer mode can be sometimes quite hard, because you're going from a fixed mindset into a growth mindset as a business. Was there any prevailing moment you thought, oh, this is really interesting, I might start exploring that, like spark that?
I suppose I've gone through this transition numerous times over the last couple of years. I think I've gone through it more times these last 2 years than I have in the last 18 years. But I think from my side of things, and it's only, again, if I go now, it's only the last three months that I've actually then gone back to my core message, and it was all about changing the perception of estate agents. So when you're then chasing being a number one on a pie chart, to me, that's not the core focus of where I was focusing the business. So as I said, if you look at it, I've gone round the circles and I've come back to my main reason, which was 18 years ago, was to change the perception. So every client that we're dealing with, we want to ensure that they're getting the best possible service from us. Or experience now is where we're looking to go. And again, we've got loads of improvements. Again, to be honest, I think this is the beginning now, and we're starting all over again.
And was there anything that was there a particular course or a particular thing that you came across you thought, actually, I want to start exploring it a bit way? Because there is always going to be there has to be that change in that mindset as a leader.
I think through me personally, I've looked at various mentors and business coaches and all sorts over the last couple of years. And don't get me wrong, I've taken a lot from each and every one of them. But I think for me, it goes back to what worked for me. Yeah. And I think, and as I said, there's a lot of things that I changed that, they may work for another company, but for me, they didn't. Yeah. So I've taken a lot and I learnt a lot, but I feel like I've gone back to where we were before all this change, which is quite weird, the journey we've been on.
And so how did you bring Liz in? And how did that even start? Like where did you...
So again...
Cause like Liz is pure marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you even brought her in as like some agents go, I'm just going to bring in some marketing person and just get on with it. And it's very hard, that transition of you trying to relay your message over to someone who's not actually physically working as an employed person in your business. It's like, where did that start?
So I had my own estate agency, but it was very heavily focused on marketing. I was moving on from that. Chris and I were introduced, and I think we just instantly had the same mindset, that passion about changing the perception of estate agency and actually, changing how people perceive estate agents to be and making it more transparent, more honest, more community-based. And we just, we sort of clicked fairly early on with that, didn't we? So,
for me, it was, as I said, we got how I come across Liz. She worked locally, which was just a town down the road, but I'd noticed a lot of the marketing that she had done.
And I was on the other side of the fence, and I remember having our first chat and me saying, I recognise your stuff. You're behind that. It's pretty awesome, wasn't it? Yeah. So
and again, it was a FIA conference, funny enough, and Graham mentioned Liz, that she'd just left the FIA, so it was an ideal opportunity for me to reach out. So literally within minutes, I reached out to Liz, just said we want to have a chat, and that was just pre-COVID.
Yeah.
We were at the point of them really getting together. But what I found fantastic through Liz, I couldn't commit financially to anything at the time, because again it was the unknown. But Liz then offered to do stuff for us for nothing, pretty much in the first lockdown. So to me it was, she was giving a lot to me.
And what made you go like, okay, I need someone like Liz now in my business?
Because I haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
And
did you try and do it?
Nope.
So as you probably expanded in what you wanted to develop, Liz then became like, oh, I need someone with that set of skills.
Well, I suppose from my side of things, if you go back to, I can't remember how long I've been a life cycle client now. 4 years.
4 years now, yeah.
So obviously we came over, and I love the idea of the marketing platform, and again, meeting through you, to me, I just thought it was right for the business. But what I found with it is we were paying for that. We had another system. The CRM system was being developed in the background, but I was paying this money for nothing and I wasn't utilising it properly. So to me, I knew I had to do it. I needed to get the brand out there. We were known locally, but I just didn't think that we were really pushing it. Hence the reason why then I approached Liz to come in and take over that side of things.
And I didn't get it.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't get it.
I didn't get initially, I I couldn't see how life cycle could fit within what we were trying to achieve.
And why was that? Was it because of?
Because I'd been trained with you keep the SEO in the website. You keep, you know, you have ownership of the data and keep it under your hat. It was only sort of really after I logged in and started poking around and chatting to you, and it started to click. And when I realised that it didn't have to be either life cycle or your own website or your own social media, it could be a mix of the two. I mean, we go across several platforms and share it all in different ways, and actually we find that the audience, that as people get engaged with it, they found it a different way. But at the end of the day, it all goes back to life cycle.
And it was quite interesting because Mark and I only just talking about on a previous podcast around, like, we talk around digital because we're Iceberg Digital, so we talk about the exploration of digital front. But it doesn't necessarily mean traditional estate agency marketing doesn't necessarily work. It's just that we're not going to be vanilla. We're going to put some speciality into it. No different if someone asks me about Facebook, I say, speak to a Facebook expert. Like, I'm an expert in life cycle. So it's nice to hear that, because sometimes people have that, I'm doing this, or it's another version. It's not like, just find my own blend of what works for us as an agency and how we want to portray our messages out there. So what have you found useful about the platform?
Oh, God. You can share to a lot of platforms from one place. I love the way that you can see how people are actually interacting and reading what you're putting out there.
That must be a nice thing, because, like, from a marketing perspective, especially like you going to Chris going, I've created this piece of content and I've distributed it out there, and most people will be thinking, okay, like, so what? Like, what value does that give me? You could go, 65 people read that, so like, here's 65 people you could possibly call.
That's the thing, isn't it? Because if you put a blog on your traditional website, you know it's helping with SEO, you know people are seeing it, you get some stats, obviously you can look at Google Analytics and things. But it's always, you're working on stuff in the future, you know, it'll pay dividends in the future, whereas lifestyle cycle, even, you can get a more instant feedback. I love the fact when we send out a newsletter, you know, 2 days, you've got an idea whether that was a interesting newsletter for people or not.
I think half the time as well it's one of those areas, and again, I'm not really into marketing myself, but you send out a blog, or you put a blog, you don't actually know who's looking at it. Or you send out a mail shot, you send out this, you leaflet drop. You don't see what really comes back from that. But again, like, we're doing regular monthly updates now, and again, it's going out to 17,000 people on our database, and we're getting like a 30% click-through rate. So we're knowing there that to me, from what I've been told, that's a really good click-through rate.
It is,
so we know that it's actually working, because actually people are taking account of what we're putting
going
out
back
there.
to, like, originally, like, think about the database you had before, 5 years ago. Like, were you even using it?
No.
So it's like, and that's what I think is crazy, because, like, if someone said to you, right, I've got 17,000 people in your local area who we can target with Liz's content, and Liz can come to you and say, I've got this, you'd think, yeah, whatever, like, that's definitely, like, and then at the same time, if you said, no, I can genuinely see this, like, how much money would that be worth to an agent out there?
And that's what I really like, is the fact that you've got Mrs. Jones who you want to be a client, and you put out a piece of content, and you can see if straight away if Mrs. Jones has read that, and if she's in, you know, and if she keeps reading it, you're like, it's worth hassling her. Whereas if she's never going to use you as an estate agent, and she's not engaging with your content, you can hopefully.
I think it's a bit of a misconception, isn't it? Because again, like, people might not be ready to move at that point. You're calling them standard. If you go back to 5 years ago, you're making what, 3-7 phone calls max. Don't get hold of them, that's it, delete them or archive them. And now it's a case of they can just sit in the system. And we've utilised it brilliantly this year. There's people we went to like last year, we weren't actually, they weren't ready then. Next thing you know, they're looking at why use Harrison's estate agents. Right, it's right, well, there you go.
And it can turn people off. You remember like that old way of traditional sales, you get told like, pick the phone. It's like for one success story you might get from it, like how many people you annoy them because they're like, they've done an instant valuation and you're trying to call them down and they're like, I'm not yet ready to move. So it gives that, I feel it gives you a better experience because you can nudge people in the right direction towards getting them to learn about it, especially with the content you put out there, helping them understand if they're looking to move soon. But then equally at the same time, you can see, right, they're not yet ready for me to speak to them now. If I start calling them because they've done something, like it's like you expect them that you've done an evaluation, so I expect that I've got to come round and see you. Otherwise, you're a waste of space. It's great. 17,000 people, like 30%, and that again each month. People like, imagine if you said we say that's 5,000 people, roughly. Imagine if you said, like, every month we're going to communicate 5,000 people in my local area with regular pieces that you put out there. And I think it's great to see that you've utilised someone like Liz, because imagine you trying to do that yourself.
Well, no. Pay somebody who's good to do it. From my point of view, there's no point me going into an area that I don't know anything about. I'd rather concentrate on things that I'm good at. Yeah,
definitely. So, talk about the evolution of life cycle, if you're okay with that. So when you joined us, it was purely a marketing concept. Liz came on board, you started to understand it a bit more, with obviously, especially with our coaching sessions. And I could see those light bulbs starting to click through.
There was a few.
That's amazing. We've experienced those together. And now we've got like the CRM functionality, which we've combined in, and then we've had that life cycle 2 and now 3. Like, how has that changed your business in, like, going back to those daily things, 5 years ago to what you did now? Like, has like a morning meeting changed, or have you got anything tangible you could probably put out just to say, like, experiences or stories that have come through?
Well, I suppose if I talk most recent of what we've done this year, I think if you go back to where we were before, it's a case of, right, we need X amount of people this week to hit target if we weren't working on targets. But for me, it's a case of, I suppose from a sales neg point of view, if we're going back to that early starter, do they actually know who to call? Whereas I think now the system has been completely simplified, where it's a case of, all right, okay, these are the people we need to call today, like first thing this morning. Right, there's your potential viewings. They're the people looking at content. They're the people you call. There's 56 calls there, 56 people looking at properties. So rather than them having to, who am I going to call? Now it's a case of, it's there in black and white. Same with sellers. As I said, who would you call unless a valuation call's coming in?
Yeah.
Now you've got the people there that you know are probably now ready to call.
Yeah.
So it to me, going back to the fact that, as I said, I work on a lot of remembering. Now, if I was coming in now, it just makes it so much easier. It's not complicated at all.
Yeah, and I think going back to go back to your database of 17,000 people in an archive database, and then from a leader's perspective, like talking around culture and staff empowerment and trying to help your teams fulfill their potential. I mean, it's nothing worse than saying, here's a database of 17,000 people. Like, your job today is just call people. Like, call who? But so at least it gives you that direction, and there's those two parts. But I think having someone like Liz on board, it'd probably be 0 if you didn't blend and think as a leader going, actually I need someone to do marketing, because I could have 17,000 people, but if I've got no way of activating them with content that they've read, probably the dashboard will probably say 0 instead of 64 people in there.
But even, again, going back to like I'm just thinking of one while you're talking to me there, it's like, even like the most inexperienced agents that are coming into the job, like again, if you've got a standard 3-bed terrace, you'd be probably looking at, there's another 3-bed terrace we've got that's on the property that we can get the viewing from. So rather than just being an order taker, you'd have to try and remember your stock. And I've got somebody who's more of a mature age, and she wouldn't know how to use think about the stock that we have on our books at the moment. But she even said the other day, it's so easy because you just go straight to other potential properties, match that properties. Oh, there's a go. Booking a viewing. There's another one I can book a viewing for. So it just to me it makes it so much easier. Then you're rather than trying to remember the stock that you've got. Not everybody can do that. So from her point of view, it makes it a lot easier for her.
And also from my point of view, because I work remotely, I can see I've got a much better idea of what's going on, what properties are coming on, and how the content that I'm putting out relates to those properties and those buyers. So everyone's better informed.
But you've developed some really good strategies though. And that's the thing around the marketing strategies and having that planned strategy and have it in place.
Yeah.
Not just we've got a new property, just randomly put it on, or we just try something random. I can see that you've had systematic stuff that you put out there in a way that you've really thought about how do we deliver particular marketing concepts. That's really good. So going back to what you said, like even pre-COVID, one of the things I want to talk about was you said you've changed teams. So why has that happened, or what value can you give to people out there that if you maybe have got you're a leader of a team, you're trying to implement change or development and stuff, or you're trying to change how your direction your business going, like what have you come across that as in like some learnings, some of the stuff you might have done well, not done well, what you've experienced from it?
I think you can look at it from both sides of the coin. It could have been me personally. At the end of the day, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but to me, it's always moving forward. So I'll probably take that one on the chin that maybe I've upset a few people in leaving, but to me, maybe they weren't on this journey with me. So I think if you don't want to develop yourself and move forward and grow, I don't want to sit here. I want to continue to keep going forward. So if you're not on that journey, we're going to clash and we're going to part. So I couldn't tell you why. All I know is, as I said, I don't want to sit still. It's just constantly moving forward. I think it may have been that people didn't want to do that.
And is that something you've started to develop out and thought, okay, right, this is the true essence of who I am as a leader and ultimately what I want the business to be led by? Because I think sometimes you can be scared of being that way, but then all of a sudden it's even worse because you're a leader with no direction or no direction towards a team, so everyone's just a bit confused about like, what the hell is my purpose in this company and why do I even exist? What's the point of even being here?
Yeah, I think one of the bigger pictures for me is that I think over the years, I think, and I've been one of these. So if you go back 5 years, this is where I was, where you get a property on, it's got to go live, and then you wait for the calls. To me, it's and again, be frank, it's Rightmove and Zoopla that have come to us saying, "Oh, you need us, you need us, you need us," and I think that one has made agents lazy, but it's also lost the buzz really of actually understanding somebody what they're after. Anyone can go and stick it on Rightmove and Zoopla, Purple Bricks and Yopa. There is a model there for that, but that wasn't the model that I wanted. It was a case of, every call you want to understand what they're after, and to me, I still get the buzz. You get a new property, who have I got? Oh, I've got somebody. That's the buzz of it. You're actually placing somebody with their dream home. And I look back at COVID in particular, we ended up taking on far too many properties. So that benefited me because it was a case of falling into the trap of just waiting for the calls and sticking it on Rightmove. And there was an element of 50-50, but we ended up stopping our stock going live purely for the case of initially we couldn't cope. So we stuck it online, and it would then we get God knows how many calls within an hour. So it was a sort of a light bulb moment there that we thought, well, actually, let's hold stock back, let's ring it out, let's go to our hot buyers or our priority list of people that we know who are going to buy today, not people that they're just going to be looking at the property on a Sunday afternoon. So that to me was a case of how we could utilise life cycle especially to work with what worked for us. And to me, yeah, it's something that we've implemented and carried on doing.
Even at the weekend, I saw with like the guys, I think you guys had on Instagram, you had like a particular reels of like, got a new one on, coming soon, coming soon.
Yeah.
I think the last one was Ryan was jumping on.
Yeah.
With the head on there, so I'm back again.
Yeah, he's
That's
done
it.
phenomenally well, to be honest.
So what was was that concept from you, Liz? Or was it a blend of like you talking about this and then you go, because you can see there's a particular way of doing it. It's not just going, I'm just going to delay it and that's it, because no one ever really understands the concept of why registering with you guys is different to someone else who says, you can register with us and we'll tell you about properties
Early
before.
bird viewings.
Early bird viewings or whatever it's going to be. So like, without giving all that process away, like what does that look like? Like how does that?
I think you and I both had a feeling about the way that the portals were making agents appear to be lazy, and we weren't happy with that. So, you know, I particularly don't like the way that portals work. And I think also a lot of buyers have changed how they're looking for property. Everybody's on Rightmove all day, every day, but actually people that want to buy want to feel a bit special and know about that property. So then we started to work out strategy, plus the COVID restrictions, we wanted to keep everyone safe. So it started off, we were limiting viewings, but now we've got into a real strategy where buyers are registering beforehand. When we've got a property, they get to see that property first.
And that's like almost like a blend of traditional estate agency
It is.
with
back,
technology, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's back to how.
Instead of
how
them
it
walking
would've
through your
been.
office, they're just registering in a different way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which actually is more convenient for them than traipsing to a high street, probably paying 20 quid to park these days, just to.
It's also, you don't have to go through the bullshit of registering them. It's already on the table of, right, this is their situation. You can go straight into the queue of actually what they're after rather than go through your checklist of name, number, email address. It's already there for you.
And actually, you
That's
almost want to get past that.
Yeah.
Because then you want to get into the gritty stuff of like, why are they moving? And by someone giving that first line of data, you have the ability to reach out to them and you're almost reconfirming, like, oh, you said you got a mortgage. Let's talk about that. Like, rather than going,
do you want to speak to our mortgage
do you want to speak to a mortgage advisor? Like every other person does. It's the same old shit they probably get from everyone else when they try and register with people. It's a great strategy on that part. So,
and you create the heads up property page, didn't you, as well? So
Yeah, we've got Facebook groups as well that run around it.
and that was a good blend, because that's what you're talking about, going back to your blend of concepts.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't just use a Facebook group and have it in there with no way of going, how do I pull the data out, people who might be in that group, into our own database? Because some agents might go, oh, I've got 300-400 members in my group. And it's like, oh, great, but if Facebook turns off tomorrow, like, have you got those details, really?
Yeah.
Do you own them, or does Facebook own them?
And you're always driving everybody around, you know, all the different platforms. So hopefully everybody will see something from Harrison's every day or two and go, they're the guys I need to use.
So, going forward, how do you see things differ maybe in the next year or so? In the form of how you probably need to utilise technology, or if you're an agent sat there and thinking, oh, it's great, but now all of a sudden that wave that everyone's been riding, starting to move down a little bit, and you're going back to calmer times. Like, where do you see the industry going in the next maybe 1 year, 2 year, 3 years? You probably think, actually, this would be beneficial to us in what we've set up in the last few years.
Well, I personally think, again, as I said it quite time and time again, I think the reactive agents are going to really struggle.
Yeah.
And we've really noticed as well, especially locally, the customer service level has it's fallen massively. We're speaking to people at the moment that as I said, haven't heard from their agent in like 8 weeks. No, that's just appalling. But the phone's not ringing now. What do we do? I think, as I said, they've been completely lost. But like, as I said, like where we are, like we come out this year, the market apparently was going to be dropping this year, and again, it's noise, isn't it? Like you can get sidetracked by the noise. Don't get me wrong, we had an awful end of year, and I think most agents did, but it was a case of, well, what do we do? Do we just listen to it, or do we come out and carry on as we are? And as I said, so far, touch wood, we're all right. But
we started to look at strategies rather than going, how do we get business and keep it with us? We start did it anyway, but like, we're not going to tie you into a contract because we believe we can sell your home. Whereas if other agents are tying you in for long periods to keep that business, they're not selling your home. That's not the best for the customer. So actually having those conversations, so actually saying them publicly, you know, and actually being more proactive in the way we work.
But most can list a house and then tie them into a 12-week contract and forget about them, can't you?
I spoke to an agent the other day, and one of our competitors, 26-week contract. Like,
we've got that.
Half a year. Like,
you're really confident.
Jesus, like if you can't sell a house in half a year, that's ridiculous. The fact that they even exist.
But even if you can't sell it within 4 weeks' time, there's an issue there. There's an issue there that really you need to address. And again, we're getting better at it, mate. Again, it's just constant improvement. But after 4 weeks, you need to be having that courageous conversation with your seller of, look, okay, the price is wrong. Where if you're in a 26-week agreement, you're just hopeful they're eventually going to come to you, reduce it, and then you're going to sell it. But that's not really a estate agency, is it?
No.
So we work on a 0-week contract. If we can't sell it, then there's a problem.
So like, and going back to like those conversations that happen in the team, like, what experience does your team have in like having those? Because I know obviously Ryan's been with you some time. Some of the other members of staff, like, because sometimes, like we talk about in the last few years, if you're new to the industry and you haven't ever had to have those conversations because property's been flying out, like, have you got any of those teams? Have you in your team?
Again, you mentioned Ryan, but Ryan hasn't seen a poor market.
Yeah, true, actually, yeah.
So even he's been, he hasn't seen a poor market. So he's only seen an average market getting to a really good market to come back down to average. So if you look at the whole team that I've got, they're not used to the market crashing or the market showing negative signs. Not showing. Hearing is probably, I think, the word rather than...
And is that quite... You talk about obviously what you hear the noise-wise, but what you've got here, is it like, what have you done maybe as a leader within that just to reassure them or give them education? Is there anything particular that you might have had those conversations around, like?
Well, probably quite direct before Christmas, but I don't know if it's for the podcast. But it was a case of, like, from my side of things, it was a case of, look, we can carry on moaning about the market conditions. That technically is not going to get us paid, which means there's decisions that have to be made. Now, whether that's right or wrong, that is the true reality. We can keep hearing all this negative talk, but ultimately we need to get through that. So that was a conversation that we sat down just before Christmas. It's probably, again, the first time I've really sat down with my team and gone, right, we have 2 days off. We won't do anything else other than let's work on the new year. Let's just reimagine what we're going to do going forward. And yeah, as I said, they've done phenomenally well. But we're only 3 weeks in. That's the thing. And again, the key thing is then remaining consistent.
But at least having that step back, let's review it. It's a bit like the NBA. You know, they're in the game. All of a sudden they do time out and they all come together, and there might be that 15-second huddle where they just talk to each other about, like, right, what are we going to do going forward? Like, we're down. Like, how are we going to get back up? A lot of owners don't have that. They just keep going. Like, hopefully something will work out, but the staff are like, hopefully something's going to work out. So sometimes those conversations do need to happen to be able to get people to refocus. And sometimes people are scared of potential conflict as a leader. You might be, oh, well, if I say this, they might be upset with and a lot of owners sometimes can be controlled by that. But so you need to have some level of conflict to come back together to then rebirth itself into going, what's the next version?
Yeah, well, and again,
You do that quite a lot.
I do like a little bit of a challenge and a bit of conflict, to be honest. But again, to me, I am very opinionated, but then again, I like the challenge. I like having an open. If we've got an issue, let's address it. Let's get it out of the way. This is one of the key things that I found. And don't get me wrong, there was a few silences in the office before, but you move on, don't you?
But then, off the back of that, you've developed new strategies, new processes, brought Liz back on. Obviously, with development of what we've released now in life cycle with those new parts, gives you a lot more of a ability for the team to sit down and go, right,
here we go.
Who do we call today?
Yeah.
And if there's no one in there, let's have a conversation with Liz about, or we can get some more people in there to then, or talk about lead generation or whatever it might be. Awesome. Okay. Appreciate you guys coming on today.
That's good.
Thank you.
Really good, really good insight for obviously anyone out there. Obviously, we've covered, technology, things have changed, how you have to change as an individual leader, like marketing concepts, why you need people like Liz in your teams as well. So I really, really appreciate you guys coming on today. It's another episode of Estate and CX. Thanks for joining, guys. Still feel tuned into the next session. I look forward to seeing you there. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. My name's Mark Burgess. Estate and CX is a community of learning, inspiration and accountability, all about the future of estate agency as we move through the 2020s.